Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Ministry Talks Podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you. We got some great stuff coming for you today.
Season 6 is already up and running, and it's off to a great start. We want to just say thank you for all of the listeners, those who are subscribing. If you're new, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button.
Yep.
We appreciate all of the responses and the feedback that we're getting from people. The description for everything is going to be below. Trying to cut as much time as possible because I feel as if
we got a good topic.
We have a good topic, and I'm going to intro this topic, and then Pastor Wes, I just want you to run with it. But Season 6, Episode 3, Small Church is Nothing to Apologize For.
Yes. And I love this topic because, and I don't know if these guys know this, but sitting at this table in this conversation represents a small quantity church.
Yeah.
And a larger quantity church.
Yes.
And so to have these types of conversations, I mean, it's just, it's amazing. It's good to be able to say, hey, here's what I see and here's what you see. And then, but what does God say about his people, right? And his church.
And why is there this, I guess, phrase, not like little c, but we said small c,
right,
versus big C,
right.
And I've heard that conversation, that language. I'm pretty sure if you're in church or serving in any capacity, you've heard that. I know you have. But talk to us, Pastor Wes. Small church is nothing to apologize for, and why is that?
Well, because if God is building the church, if Jesus is building his church, then he's going to do a way better job than what we can, regardless of the size of the church.
We can go home right now.
Right? Amen.
The benediction.
Get the benediction on it and we're done.
Yeah.
But the reality is conversations in ministry have happened since I've been in ministry for 25 years of, are all churches supposed to be large? Right? Ooh. Are all pastors supposed to pastor a large church? And so I use this reference very loosely because my father-in-law actually does watch our podcast. Oh. And so shout out to father-in-law. Hey, Chester.
Hey, Mr. Gross. Yes.
And he had that struggle, right? Yeah. He had that struggle to where, you bump that 200 barrier a couple times with a couple different churches. His first few church plants were 20 and 30 people, and to a lot of folks, that's failure, right? Wow. Because then you end up moving on.
Yeah.
But the quality of church that he helped produce, the quality of Christian that he helped produce, was a great thing. It was a great success. And so he and I have had many conversations over this, and the question does come out: is every pastor supposed to does every pastor have the ability to lead a large church, or are you called to lead a large church?
So, okay, man, you're already saying a mouthful, bro, and we're not even 10 minutes in. Are you capable and called to run a big C church? But let's stop for a second, because maybe for the listeners, they're trying to figure out, what is a small C church? Yeah. What is a big C church? So what is that?
Gotcha. So average church size in America is about 50 people or less. 50 people or less. At post-pandemic, I think the numbers are going to skew a little bit smaller than that. Right. 35, 40, 45 or less. Yep. With the mass exodus of the nuns group in ONE.
Yep.
And then there's also just folks who decided, and I'm going to say this wrong, so don't come at me, but this is just how it's going to come out. They decided that church hurt them too much, so they're just not coming back.
And they're only focused on an online atmosphere.
Or if at all.
That's true.
Right? If at all.
That's true.
And so the average church in America skews around 45 to 50. Okay. That's the average church. You can go pretty much knock on any door and you're going to walk in and be the only guest in a room of about 40 people. Okay. So then what is a large church, right? That's considered a small church. Yeah. What is a large church? There still exists a barrier in churchdom that if you can reach the 200 mark and push past that 200 mark consistently, then you can become a 1,000-member church. Okay. Like if you hit that barrier and you overcome it, you can become 1,000 members or multiple services or multiple campuses or any of that stuff. You can't.
Okay.
And that still exists. I feel very strongly that still exists. So then that means anything that is 200 people or over is considered a large church. Now, in the numbers in America, if you are 1,000 people or more, you are considered a mega church.
Ooh, 1,000 or more.
1,000 or more.
And does that mean 1,000 in attendance for one service?
1,000 in attendance on regularly attended services, whether it be across campuses or over periods over multiple services.
Okay.
So one church with 3 services that reaches 1,000 people in a weekend
is considered
a mega church.
Okay, so I love this question. I love what you're talking about. Sometimes I feel as if in today's culture, especially in church, right? We talk a lot about culture, cancel culture. We've talked a lot about how culture affects the church. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the culture within the church. Let's talk about how conversations outside the church and inside the church affect each other. Because I feel when I look at small C versus big C, what I'm saying is my church is bigger than yours.
Right.
But personally, I love the question. What if you're called to just pastor those 40 to 50 to 60 people and never see the light or to see the 150, 300, 400, 500 people?
Right.
What if that's what God has called you to? Are you, here's another C word, are you content within that?
Right. And that's a question that my brother-in-law asked me at about the middle of the pandemic.
Okay.
My brother-in-law, Brian Gross, good preacher.
Yeah.
Loves Jesus with all of his heart. And he'll probably be here at Hope Church, speaking from time to time.
We'll have to get him on a brag table.
Yeah, we'll have to get him here on the brag table. Great guy, but he looked me dead in my eye. I mean, this man loves me. I know that.
Yeah.
And I love him too. And so he looked me dead in the eye one day and he goes, "Are you going to be okay if this is all God's called you to?"
Ooh. Are you going to be okay if this is all God called you
to? Well, and that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, that is.
Like, are you going to be fine? And the truth is that the arrogant side of me would say no.
Thank you for
because
being
I
transparent.
all want more. Everybody wants more.
We all do, yeah.
And so, well, why do you want more? Well, most of the time you want more for the fame or for the notoriety or sometimes some pure-hearted people. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I mean, I'd like to think that I am, but again, I'm not saying I'm one of them.
We're just going to be honest
I've
here
told you it's coming
at the Men Talks podcast.
And you want it because you want to help more people. Like you want to show Jesus to more people. Yeah. And so that's the pure side of it. Like you want to see salvations and you want to build disciples, right? And so that's why you want more. But when you're looking at your 25, 35, 45 people, you're seeing the same faces over and over and over again. And you're like, I can't do much more with you guys, especially in my church, in our church at Hope. There's a person who's been in this church longer than I've been alive. And so I'm sitting here going, I don't exactly know how to pastor you, but he constantly tells me, God's using you to help grow me in my almost 80s.
But see, let's stop right there because you might not, or a church might not be growing like numerically.
Correct.
But if you're growing spiritually and you're diving into the word and you're serving your local community and you're growing as a community, well, then aren't you doing what the word of God says anyway?
Correct.
Like, aren't you doing the Great Commission by making disciples?
Making the disciples.
So then where did we get this concept or where did we get this idea? I have to have the mega thousands in my church. But for what? Like, you probably know every member in your church by name and you've got personal relationship. I can say the same thing about Pastor Jack, where he has been serving the river for 40 years. That means he has been there faithfully. He has seen people come and go, but the people who are there, he knows.
Right.
And people know where they can find him on Sundays and on Wednesdays.
That's right.
But I love where we're at, and I'm going to ask this question, and then we're going to take a break to thank our sponsor.
Sweet.
How do we or should we operate in a small C or big C way? So, like, how do we operate in small C, little C, or small C, big C? How, or should we? Like, is that question making sense?
I think what you're asking is, if we are a small C, should we operate as a big C?
There it is.
Or if we are a big C, should we operate as a smaller C?
That's it.
We'll get to that answer right here after our sponsor.
Humble Bee.
Hey, we just want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's show. You guys know that we drink coffee on this show all the time, and so it would be just perfect for our very first sponsor to be a coffee company. That's right. Beansforgiving.com, beansforgiving.com. It's an extraordinary coffee with an extraordinary cause. Their signature blend is right here on the table, Sweet Jesus. We've been drinking that pretty much this whole season. He has 3 or 4 other blends that are fantastic. Beansforgiving.com. Extraordinary coffee with an extraordinary cause. You can find it online, beansforgiving.com. If you buy one, you give it, you enjoy. And here's the thing. 100% of the proceeds of the purchase of this coffee go to a nonprofit organization of your choice. That's right, a nonprofit organization of your choice. So not only do they not really make a lot of money on this, they support nonprofit organizations out there. They are also supporting this podcast by just giving us some coffee. So we want to make sure that we say thank you to Mr. Tony. Thank you for Beans for Giving, the company, beansforgiving.com. And so go check them out. And again, we receive nothing from your purchases, but I do have to tell you, it's good coffee with or without a little cream or sugar. It's great coffee by itself. So again, thank you to beansforgiving.com.
Thank you, Beans for Giving.
Yes, Beans for Giving. Check them out. Go get some coffee.
So the question, if you're a small C, should you be operating in a big C way?
Right.
I think that's the question, right?
Right.
Or if you're a big C, should you be talk to us? Because I think it's kind of it's on an upside down pyramid.
So here's what I think. And again, we don't know everything.
But we're going to walk with
you through everything. So I have never been a part of a church that's larger than 400.
Okay.
But I've been on staff of a church with 400 people. And there have been many times when we were big C visual, but we operated in small C thinking.
Ooh.
And I think sometimes that's a barrier and sometimes that's a blessing.
Okay.
And you just have to know, you have to be able to get to the root of, are you trying to fix a problem? Are you seeing a pattern, right? Or are you dealing with personalities? And a lot of that has to do with who's on your staff, what is your culture, right? Culture eats vision for breakfast. I don't care what the vision of your church is. If your culture says something different, because your culture is what you live, not what you say, then when you're a big C church operating as a small C with a small C mentality, people will begin to recognize, and all of a sudden your big C church becomes a small C church. Now,
right.
Does that mean the flip side of that coin is the same? If you're a small C church trying to operate like a big C church, what are those downfalls? What are those benefits? Well, the benefits are maybe you get better at something and you're a bit more attracting, and or you make disciples a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right? So then you slowly are moving towards the bigger C numbers.
Yeah.
But the problem is a small C church can tend to want to spend money like a big C church, and then they just don't got no money at the end of the year.
Right.
And then there's no church.
Because of the budget.
Or pastors got to be bivocational, which most pastors, I think, in the next 10 years are going to be bivocational anyway.
Really?
Unless you're in a big church.
They're about to be working.
Folks about to be working. Well, it might be the whole side hustle idea. Right?
We'll have to put that in here.
Well, actually,
that's an episode.
That is an episode. Well, we might have to get that. Like, should pastors have a side hustle?
I think we need to.
Right? Should pastors have another form of income? Short answer: yes, absolutely. But back to the big C thing. So when we're operating in small C church, this is what tends to happen. And I was hoping this word would come out, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. We begin to compare ourselves.
Yeah.
To big C. Right, to large C church.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met a pastor of 3, 4, 5, 6, 700,000 people go, man, I sure miss the days of when.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Like, That's when, and this is where I knew that I was not called to pastor more than 200 people. I am a shepherd at heart.
Right.
I'm not a manager. I can manage people. I have managed people for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But I want to be out there picking out the nets. I want to be out there straightening the hair. I want to be shearing the sheep, right? I want to be out there in the middle of the flock. Mm-hmm. And if you have more than, now one average person, I believe one average pastor, I believe, with a little help, can pastor up to 100 people. Not super difficult.
Right.
Right. Because it's not every day you get that middle of the night phone call.
Yeah.
With 100 or less.
That's true.
With 200 or more, you get more frequent phone calls and more emails and more hate mails and all that other stuff. And so, but when it comes to this small church versus big church idea, small church is nothing to apologize for, because that's probably what God has gifted you and called you to do.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go back to season 5, one of the episodes in season 5, where we talk about your talents and your abilities.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right, the difference between a blessing and a burden.
Yeah.
Remember that episode?
Yeah, I do.
So that episode is the exact same thing as being a pastor. And I'll bring it to the business side here in just a minute, but especially here in ministry, if God hasn't called you or equipped you to lead more than 50 people, don't be upset if you can't lead more than 50 people.
Okay. Well, and then I think, and I don't want you to lose your thought on, alluding to the business, but when you begin to pastor more than 200 people, then that means your staffing has to be on point.
Right.
People who can help run. And
you're still pastoring, but you're pastoring a smaller group of staff people. That's why I said there's a huge difference between a shepherd heart and a manager mindset.
You said something, bro, that just, I can't let it go, but culture eats vision.
Culture eats vision for breakfast. I don't care what your vision says. Your culture tells people who you are.
Write that down. Culture eats vision.
Hashtag.
Culture eats vision for breakfast.
I don't know if that was a Grochellism or if I heard it somewhere, but it stuck with me.
I don't know. I've never heard it until just now.
Yeah.
And my mind is like stuck on it, because you know what? Well, hold on. I want you to allude to what you were going to talk about, because I know you were saying
the business piece.
Business aspect, and then I'll ask this question and we'll try to tie this thing up.
Okay. So I guess when I'm talking about being a business owner, which I have been, the concept still applies. Stop comparing yourself to other businesses in that field.
Right.
Because you're designed and you're made, and your specialty and your uniqueness of being a boss or being a business owner has already been given to you in your abilities. Right. That's why some people can go on to be CEOs of, Fortune 500 companies. They've got the brains, they've got the attitude, they've got the personality, they have the drive. A lot of those folks don't care what people think. They just are there to do it.
Those are the go-getters.
Exactly.
The self-starters.
But when you're running a business, what needs to happen is, are you keeping your mind on the mission? Right? Are you keeping your focus on the goal? Because if you're keeping your focus on the goal and you're not comparing yourself to everybody else, then your business is bound to be a bit more successful as long as you're putting in the work. Right? Businesses run off of systems. Churches run off of systems. I don't know if everybody knows that.
No, but
there are so many behind the scenes systems, right? Side B systems that I can point to and say, that's what's going on in this church because this system's broken.
And I'm starting to love the side B system more as I get older, because I realize how essential it is. Follow through, follow up, execution. Right. It's easy to get up. And I'm not saying this in like a braggadocious way or trying to say like we don't put the time in for studying, because we do, but we can get up there and we can talk for 20, 30 minutes and send people. We can teach and explain. We can exhort. We can preach. We can get people fired up.
Right.
But then what are we doing when Sunday's done and when Wednesday's done, or whenever you have your gathering, like, what are you doing with your team? Are you coming together? Are you rallying? Is there a win? Are you sharing wins? How are you operating your staff meeting? What's the culture? And I think that's so key. So, like, to wrap this up the best we can, not even saying we're done, but this is a question that I think will
this
lead
is
us.
such a large topic. This episode isn't going to cover it all.
I don't think that there's a difference between small C and big C. Okay. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I believe the two marry one another. I believe that you need both.
Right.
And I believe that both.
I will agree with that.
And I believe that both need each other in order to fully function and stay alive. I think that you can be a small C church, less than 200, but still have big C intentions, like reaching your community, loving your community, and, killing it. Right. But still be right where you're supposed to be at and be comfortable without comparison. I believe if you're a big C church, I believe that if you're pressing over 200, because I believe that that's where we're at as the river. I believe we're seeing that. We are a big C church, but we run in small C ways where, our staff is small, very limited. But I also believe that me as the youth and young adult pastor, I empower my leaders very much to it's not Isaiah's youth ministry. It's not Heather's youth ministry. This is our youth ministry. So that's the language that I use because I want to create buy-in with my leaders. And when I create buy-in with my leaders, they help kind of run that. And then our youth ministry begins to feel that this is theirs as well. Yeah. Like while this is airing, I'm actually still on an 8-week rest while my leaders are running and they're preaching and they're doing it. I won't start preaching until end of September, but that's perfect because now I'm going to preach, watch this, from end of September all the way to summer camp. Right. And that's a long run that people don't realize. That's from September to pretty much July. Yeah. Yeah. And we're talking relationships. But see, if I don't empower my leaders, then that goes back to an episode that we did. I can't remember what season, but you can't do this by yourself. Right. And if I can't empower my team to help me run this thing, then I'm going to, because if all I'm doing is stuck in big C, then I'm going to miss the little C moments. Right. Big C, yeah, let's have a big youth ministry. But then there's little C moments that says, hey, I've got a great team though. Right. And am I investing in my team? And if I may be so bold, that's the biggest difference between the operation of a small C church and a bigger C church, right? Yeah. Or in a larger C church. And here's the difference. It just flat out in a nutshell. Okay. You said this is a team effort. Right. And Pastor Jack has a team and you have a team and then the team has, right? Yeah. The big team effort. Yeah. In a small church, and I know this both from experience, but also by seeing it. In a small C church, most of the time the leaders are also the bottlenecks. The leaders are also the only doers. Right. They don't team well. Right. And so if you don't team well, then of course you're not going to have. Is that personality though? That's personality. Right. Okay. That's not problem. And that's not pattern. That's personality. Yeah. And so it goes back to, are you gifted even? Like, are you even called to? Are you capable? Right. When Paul tells Timothy, be careful not to put a brand new Christian in leadership. Right. Why? Right. It's because they think they know better. They don't have solid doctrine. Yeah. They don't know how to team. A lot of zeal. No wisdom. A lot of gear and no idea. That's what it's called. So a lot of zip and no ship. That's what it is. Okay. So no, that's so good, and it's true. Yeah. So okay. One of the things I love about Pastor Jack, shout out Pastor Jack, he doesn't micromanage. But that's huge. But just because he's not micromanaging doesn't mean he's not managing. Correct. And it may seem like he doesn't know what's going on. He knows what's going on. And I've learned that because I just took a vacation over the summer. And matter of fact, it was myself and two other key leaders' families, our worship leader and Matt Lynch. So it was Justin Goodat and his wife Jessie, and then it was Matt and Christina. So we went camping.
Wow.
You're talking and this is,
that's frontline leadership there.
Yes. And it's so funny that I'm even saying this, but it's like we are like what you would call the older leaders compared to the younger leaders like Bree, Austin, Philip, Daniel. So we're talking like under 30, they're the ones. Now we had one leader there. Her name was LaTanya. We call her Bishop. She
Come on, Bishop.
She's still front line. So I never was worried. Tanya could have took a night off. I was never worried. Here's why I was never worried. I did enough reps. Listen to my language. I did enough reps in front of them. I led by example enough. We've done enough reps. We've done this enough to know if Pastor Isaiah goes on vacation, this thing is still going to run.
Right.
And I should be able to. So we take the vacation, we go. You got the under 30 leaders. Bree leads worship with the young adult team. Daniel preaches. He kills it. Tanya actually closes worship in the flow. It was almost as if like it was like I was there, but I wasn't there. So are you leading in the capacity? Because here's what I'm hearing you say. If you're bottlenecking, it's because you don't trust people.
Right.
And then 2, it's because you have to be the person that has the final say. Yeah, I may have the final say, but man, you don't know how many conversations I have with Heather. Man, you don't know how many conversations I have as a team. As a team.
Right.
So I realized the team effort in building a big C church starts with, let's use this C word, conversation.
Yeah.
So now we're having a conversation. Yeah. Now, hey, what's the purpose of Purpose 828? What's the vision of Purpose 828?
Yeah.
That it's a safe place. You belong before you believe, that you encounter the Holy Spirit, that we've engaged in worship, we've engaged in word, and we've engaged in community. Now, that's not our vision. That's not our mission at all. I'm just throwing.
That's just how, but that's the culture of what you produce.
And when I'm not there, the
culture still happens.
Exactly. So for us, when I see Pastor Jack and I see how he's running and I see what he's doing, he doesn't micromanage. So I don't have to micromanage.
Yeah.
Everybody on our team knows, hey, this person's preaching next. And guess what that means? You bring the same expectation. You bring the same noise, just as if I were here. You know what I mean? I don't have to be in this thing 24/7.
Yeah.
We easily could, but to me, I believe that gives your leaders an opportunity. Man, this is my youth ministry. Man, I'm a part of this thing.
Right.
And if you don't bleed that, or if you don't help shepherd that, then I would almost say then you're doing this wrong.
I'd agree with that.
I feel like you have to.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
I think I heard it said, if you're training up leaders, who's now?
Who's next?
Who's next? And then I can't remember the third one. I think the third one was like the not yets or something like that. Yeah, they'll get there, but not yet.
That sounds like a Pete Carrollism right there. Who's now and who's next?
Well, I mean, think about it. That's a football term, right? Next man up.
Yeah, next man up.
So when I call on somebody, hey, I want you to get your sermon ready because me and Heather are getting ready to take the family out. We're getting ready to go on vacation.
Yeah.
Well, we do that. And if I could be honest, I allow my team to rest. And it has to go both ways.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong. Like if you're a pastor and you're overseeing a ministry and your church is like 50, 80, let's say you're not at 100, keep doing what you're doing because God's called you to that. You're living out Matthew, the Great Commission. You're living that out where you're making disciples.
Yeah.
If you're overseeing a church over 200, I would almost just say, continue to keep doing what you're doing, but you could always do it better. And I feel like you could always do it better on both ends. Meaning, I think every once in a while, there does need to be a check-in. Hey, is our system running?
Right.
What do we need to do? What are some do's? What are some don'ts? What are some things? And then, this is opening up a whole can of worms. Have people who you feel like you can trust with your vision.
Right. Dude, that's a whole different conversation. Whole different conversation.
Because I can trust every person on my youth team. They understand our vision and mission. They understand what we're doing.
You mean they're not trying to bring their own agenda or their own mission?
They present an idea, willing to hear it, willing to listen and have a conversation. And I don't say this in like a lordship way, but if I've been trusted to pastor this youth ministry, 1, my pastors trusted me, and 2, I'm placed here by his leading to hear from God. And in the direction that we're going, because it's happened once or twice from one individual, and each time that individual has had to be like, I was wrong. And in respectful, I'm like, it's okay. Love your heart, love your passion. Let's just keep running,
Let's just keep going. Yeah.
But can you trust your team to run with the vision.
That's good.
I think if you're talking about small C, big C, sometimes you have people on staff, right? Yeah. You have people on staff and they're like, man, we should do this. Remember, we did a whole thing on should, you should do this or we should do that. And I'm just wondering, like, is the vision not plain enough, or are you trying to put your own agenda in there?
Right.
Like I said, that's a whole conversation.
Well, we've been talking about culture a whole lot. There is a reference that I want to put out there. It'll be down in the description. The book is called Cracking Your Church's Culture Code. I don't remember the author right now on the top of my head. I believe it's Chad something. Oh, man, I wish I could remember. I read it years and years and years ago. Definitely worth a look, regardless of the size of your church. Because like we said, if you are called to a particular number, the next thing that you have to conquer, the next thing that you really have to hone in on and bring to, just bring some strength behind it and bring some foundation behind it is your church's culture code.
Cracking
your church's culture code. Great book. And it does differentiate a little bit between the smaller style churches, smaller quantity churches, and the larger quantity churches, because they definitely each have a largely different culture that's there. So Samuel R. Chand, there it is, Chand, not Chad, Chand. I got it, Samuel R. Chand. It'll be down in the description. It's fine, man.
I love you so much.
I knew it was there. I had it. I saw in my head CHA.
All I saw was like, well, that's Samuel. I don't know if that's Chad, but I'm gonna show it to him.
Samuel R. Chand. Chand is the last name. Yeah, it'll be the link will be down in the description. Why don't you close this out?
Hey,
here,
listen,
man?
we're so thankful for you guys joining us and being with us in season 6. And our prayer here is that the content not only gets better, but I pray that as you're listening, you're gaining insight, wisdom. Maybe you're hearing something you've never heard. And if you maybe have questions, go to mintalkspodcast at gmail.com.
Shoot us an email.
We love the feedback that we're already getting.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
We'd love to hear more. Maybe you've got questions on this. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/ministry talks podcast.
Yep.
We are thankful for our supporters. Like, honestly, if you're looking at season 6 and you're kind of seeing a new mic and you're seeing some updates, that's from you. That is from supporters that we greatly appreciate. Subscribe. You can go to Spotify. You can stay right here on YouTube. We thank you so much.
We are now on Pandora, by the way.
No way.
Yes, sir.
I just found out.
Yep, we are on Pandora.
Shout out Pandora.
Really? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, Amazon Music. We are on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Now we're on Pandora.
All that's going to be at the description below. And check this out. Episode 4 of season 6.
Yes, next week.
Stop trying to make Christianity sexy.
That's it. We're going to leave you with that. Hey, thank you guys for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. Again, shout out to all the folks who have helped make this happen. And we will catch you guys in the next episode.